Whoa, hey, look at that. Off stream recording, no chat. Hello. Not wearing pants, though I wear short shorts when I stream, so I think my briefs cover about the same amount of leg as the shorts do. Hi. Um, the reason I'm recording this is because I had a completely spontaneous and authentic set of thoughts. It has nothing at all to do with my editor texting me saying that we didn't have anything loaded up for a video tomorrow. No, really though, there was something I wanted to talk about, which is the red pill, um, which you've probably heard a little bit about. I'm the point of these offline recordings is that they were supposed to be a little bit more direct and expedient and a little bit less meandering. So I'm going to try my best to stick to that. Also, chat not being here helps me not be condescending and also keep my thoughts in order. So I wanted to talk just for a second about the red pill. And on the off chance that anyone who generally disagrees with me sees this video, which, you know, it's been known to happen on YouTube. Um, hello, ignore the ear bandage. Uh, uh, I've got an equal number of comments, people saying like I don't have a right to talk about anything incel related because I'm handsome, in which case, thank you, and also that I shouldn't because I'm a cuck and therefore sort of um, e- epistemically detached from anything associated with like masculine ideology. So I guess like if you combine those, I would fit in a happy medium right here, you know, where I actually have a right to speak in these issues. Um, the red pill, and by that I'm sort of really broadly referring to like men's rights communities, pickup artist communities, you know, that kind of thing. Andrew Tate and all of his associated mannerisms and orbiters and stuff. Um, the attitudes associated with it, the idea that there's some kind of lost masculinity that men need to reclaim in order to be socially functional and, you know, exceptional. It's been around for a really long time. Like, am I out of focus? Oh God, I turned autofocus on. Why is the focus so particular? Is that better? Okay, I think that's fine. I don't even know if I was out of focus to begin with. It could just be 2 a.m. Might be. Um, anyway, this set of ideas isn't exactly new. It's actually really, really old. Like, if you read into it, like historically, you can find that there are examples of, like, turn of the century men, the beginning of the 20th century, and like pamphlets they would read on like the art of masculinity and how, you know, these are behaviors we must reclaim. Because every time there's been a large social shift of any kind, um, elements of our gender roles change. For example, the idea of the modern nuclear family, you know, white picket fence, suburban house, this is literally like a post 1950s thing, right? Like after the oh God, what was it called? The GI Bill, you know, when the new Americana was formed. Um the nuclear family in its sort of original state is a post-industrial revolution thing. So you can imagine the ideas of masculinity and femininity that would have had to change when a bunch of people moved into cities to work in factories as the farming jobs dried up. You know, like can you imagine like a family that's been on a farm for literally like dozens of generations, and then like, you know, they pick up shop and move over to a city and they live in some ramshackle tenement apartment with like Irish and Italian families, like screaming at each other through walls that are literally paper thin. um i i I imagine it must have been kind of disconcerting. We're in the midst of a pretty significant social shift right now. And, you know, I'm not the first person to point out that we don't really have a strong idea of what it means to be a man, like in a cohesive sense that everyone can get along and sort of agree on. Because we have ideas on what it means to be masculine. So, like, if you want to think of a masculine archetype, you can find them all over the place. But many masculine archetypes are like so over the top that they can't really exist. Like Duke Nukem type characters, you know what I mean? Like, oh, who's like the most masculine guy you can think of? Oh, well, you know, here's some like 8 foot tall Giga Chad, super muscular. Like, think of Giga Chad, for example. Like, nobody looks like Giga Chad does in real life. Even those photos are, I believe, Photoshop. They're edited by the girlfriend of the model. He's still very muscular, but, you know. Um, Yeah, 8 foot tall. Duke Nukem has like the flat top, smoking a cigar while like 17 women are sucking his dick, which is like 2 feet long or something. A lot of our understanding, are like the image of the archetypal man is really like hyperbolically masculine in a way that the archetypically feminine woman like kind of isn't. I think if you ask a lot of people what like imagine like the most feminine woman, a lot of them will think of a woman who can exist, or maybe even a woman who does exist. I guess what I'm saying is like, I think that the exemplification of ideals surrounding femininity, while there are certainly issues with them as well, they tend to be maybe a little bit more rooted in reality. Whereas there's this kind of like infinite expression of masculinity that we have as an archetypal ideal, but doesn't really exist in real life. This is one of the reasons why guys get so like so many guys are depressed over their dick size, for example, which of course, as much as people play it up, and I, as somebody who um, likes guys, being a bit of a size queen myself, in reality, like dick size doesn't matter that much, it really doesn't. There are a million genetic characteristics that get thrown at the wall when a person is born, and there are certainly characteristics that are more influential than dick size when it comes to your likelihood of um, bagging a chick. Whichever ones are associated with personality would still probably come out on top. You can go a long way with that. One second, I'm holding this water bottle. But what I mean to say is like with the archetypal masculinity, right? A lot of guys get depressed over their dick size because of like porn, right? But like I think there's it's something kind of weird about that because there are guys with above average dicks who will get insecure over their dick size because of porn. Like you'll have guys with like 7-inch dicks who will be upset that their dicks aren't larger. This isn't an uncommon thing. I think there have been studies shown that like a huge number of guys are insecure over their dick size. Again, this isn't like a unique thing. Like there are chicks like insecure over their boob size or whatever, like sure. But I think the issue is that in a lot of ways, the idealization of, or like the image of like what it means to have like a good sized dick or something, and pardon me for the crassness of the topic, but I think it's kind of important, is in a lot of people's conceptualization of like the masculine dick, you go like beyond what is even physically possible. Like what is the most masculine dick? Like, I don't know. Go look at what people draw. Go look at what the furries or like the hentai artists or whatever are drawing when it comes to like penis sizes, okay? Like I think that our average conceptualization there is kind of out of whack with what exists in reality, which isn't necessarily bad for like artistic purposes, but it does, I think it reinforces the idea. Like, what is a muscular guy? Well, look at muscular guys as depicted in media, not just in movies where people are limited by the physical size and shape of their bodies, but think of a muscular guy like in a cartoon show. They're not muscular the way real humans are muscular. They're like these titanic triangle shaped guys, right? How many pieces of animated media can you think of where there's like the muscular guy archetype? It's not just that he's muscular, he's like a different species. Like this, I'm imagining like the old like Superman and Batman WB animated cartoons where all the men are like these giant triangles, even like civilians, not even the superheroes alone, just like everyone, it's just colossal. And women are like really waifish, you know? You can be really waifish in real life. You can't actually be an 8 foot tall triangle man in real life. It's not actually possible. Where I'm getting at with this, what I'm rambling about, is that I think when it comes to like the expression of masculinity, we have a collection of characteristics, strength and virility and stuff, and we don't really have a limiter on where those things are supposed to be. Maybe it's considered feminine to be sort of demure, but there's a limit to that. I think there's like a conceptual space where a person is demure enough to be sort of ideally feminine in the archetypal sense, or like a person being motherly or whatever, or maternal or like caring or something. I think there are points here where we can think like, okay, well that's a good place to be. Think of like, well, what does it mean to be a guy and be strong? A guy can be any amount of strong, and the more strong, the more guy. If you can crush bricks with your hands, that's a strong guy. But if you can crush like bigger breaks with your hands. Like, you're even more guy. And I think where I'm rounding all this stuff back to is because we have like this hyperbole built into the nature of masculinity. We see hyperbolic depictions of masculinity idealized to the point that people will shut off their common sense if they feel like they're being given an opportunity to kind of model themselves after it, a la Andrew Tate, right? Now, personally, I think Andrew Tate looks like a gay bottom because I grew up near West Hollywood, and something about his lips, I don't know. But a lot of people, I guess a lot of 14-year-old boys, are convinced that this guy is some kind of like masculine pinnacle. Personally, to me, he comes across as incredibly insecure. And if you see him in his live streams, he comes across as kind of like um, weak and postury as well, where he's like always teetering on the edge of having control over the situation. And he has to like constantly affect control of the situation by surrounding himself with people who will slurp his balls and never like really challenge him. Exemplified when Hassan sort of wiggled his way on to one of his shows, and Hassan lightly prodding him was like, got Andrew Tate to be like, if you're going to be mean, then I'm just gonna kick you. No one wants you here, man. I'm just gonna kick you. And instantly he sounds like a I don't know, like a 16-year-old on like AIM in a group chat talking about how after they added a new guy who's being kind of mean to their shared friend, that I'm gonna kick you if you keep being like this. Jokes aside, well, that wasn't a joke, it was observation. Observation aside, um, the popularity of Andrew Tate speaks to sort of like a broader cultural issue, I think, that's worth looking at. This isn't new, right? Like every time lefties address or talk about this, like, well, where is the red pill coming from? Where is it? Well, there are a couple of lines that you hear over and over again, which is like, feminism has addressed imbalances and inequalities in the way we treat men and women, and it has given us kind of a broader, like, ideal archetype of a woman or something to strive for, or an idea that it's acceptable to be different things. We haven't really done the same with guys, so guys are kind of caught in this world where everyone acknowledges that like the archetypically masculine characteristics are still really ideal and attractive, like Giga Chad stuff, like super confident, machismo, muscular, square jaw, stoic, no emotion, haha, female, blah blah, that kind of thing. While also acknowledging that like in reality the expression of these characteristics makes you an unlikable sociopath, like Andrew Tate, I guess. And that the expression of these traits actually has very, very, very little to do with sexual or romantic success, which has a lot more to do with stuff like confidence and like general poise and the ability to command the attention of people around you with charisma. I cannot stop fucking with stuff around me. Oh my god. Because it's 2 a.m., my body's decomposing till I fall into bed. A lot of lefties say this. I've said this. Um, there's also the broader material analysis as well, where oftentimes, since the man's role is often sort of relegated to that of the breadwinner, and even though things have changed lately when it comes to like employment, women have jobs now, whatever, we still obviously have associations. The idea of a stay-at-home wife is, for example, far more common and accepted than the idea of a stay-at-home husband. Um, and economically, neither are feasible anyway for most people. And so, the economy is kind of trash, and a lot of people, especially younger people, are recognizing that they're never really going to get the kind of like comfortable middle class life that they wanted. Buying a house is out of reach. You can take a look at basically any chart describing economic inequality between generations to see there's a good reason for people in Gen Z to be economically anxious. And economic anxiety ties in heavily to masculinity. When people are generally impoverished, when there's not much economic mobility, when people don't have a lot of hope for the future with regards to their like financial prospects, this cuts into a lot of the characteristics that people associate with masculinity. It may seem kind of old hat to a lot of the enlightened cucky lefties who like to watch me, but like, it's pretty common for a guy to be kind of like judged in a way that a girl might not, for still living at home with their parents, or not having a car, or not being able to really afford to pay for a meal, or like take them out for a meal at all because they can't really afford jack shit, especially when you're younger, because at that point your sense of shame and your desire to fit in socially is exacerbated. Um, and, to bring it way back to the most hyperbolic example possible, since fascism is in large part about the perceived reclaiming of masculinity, that did emerge from an economic crisis in Germany. Fascism often is a product of economic crises, and I don't think it's a coincidence that an ideology rooted in the perception of reviving masculinity is often born from times of great economic inequality. So, that's a taste of material analysis. And so you have that. You have like the standard lefty line, you have the standard, like, more Marx leaning analysis. I guess I want to talk a little bit more like directly so we can pull sort of out of the analytical frame and reiterate some more stuff that you've probably heard on Counterpoint's channel. But being a guy can suck in a lot of ways. You don't need me to reiterate all the ways in which guys have some stuff easier, getting taken more seriously in a lot of environments, fearing violence. You could go on forever. Like, there's a lot of stuff there, um but there are ways in which being a guy can kind of suck, and one of the big ways is social attainment. Just due to the way guys are socialized, and the way guys are perceived, generally as being more threatening and more standoffish, which, to be fair, guys do tend to be more threatening and standoffish, but, that's also a product of how they're socialized. Guys have a harder time forming social groups. One of the reasons why there are so many more male homeless people than there are female homeless people is because a lot of female would otherwise be homeless people have a social network to call upon, somebody's couch to crash on, or something like that. Of course, oftentimes the ability to crash on someone's couch as a woman who would otherwise be homeless is transactional, like they have to sleep their way into that couch. And I don't know if I would necessarily call that female privilege, but I listen. I saw a study once. Okay, women social networks, it's a thing. And a lot of guys are super duper lonely. And they also feel like really lied to, especially when they're younger. Oh, there are a lot of guys who get into this when they're older too, because a lot of the messages that we tell guys on like how to socialize, how to like get with chicks, doesn't work. I think in part because of half measures, right? Socially, in a lot of places, we've abandoned the idea of like like to get a girl you have to be like this super stoic, like really masculine guy who will sort of calmly command the room and just be a chad, and the women will fall for you. I feel like that kind of attitude, people have mostly swept it away, which is why a lot of pickup artist communities encourage guys to actually be very aggressive with their flirting, in large part because this strategy doesn't work at all. It's it's an exemplification of the masculine like ideal, right? The ultra masculine man never has to flirt with a woman; they just approach him. Like, that's a pretty common trope, right? Like, if there's a guy who's so giga chad, um, like all the women will swoon as soon as he enters the room or whatever. Um, but obviously, it doesn't happen to most people. The circumstances have to be pretty exceptional for that to be the case. Usually, a guy has to be famous, and the women have to already know who that guy is for that to be a thing. And oftentimes, people in the red pill community, uh, like Andrew Tate, will stack the deck in their favor by, like anytime they have interactions that, of course, are being recorded and then sort of monetized, like, well, how does he interact with women? Like, he's already rich and famous, of course. So, you can pay a group of people to do anything. You don't even have to pay them. If they're continuing to hang out with you is sort of predicated on them treating you well, then they will continue to treat you well in most cases. That's why a lot of wealthy people have trouble knowing whether or not people are really their friends. It's just convenient to be friends with wealthy people. Um, what was I saying? Oh, right. A lot of guys feel lied to when it comes to like how to make friends and how to build a social network. And I have opinions on how to do that, but that's a whole other video, and it's also a subject that I've talked on, a lot before. And I don't want to 20 minutes. I don't want to 19 minutes. I don't want to quadruple the length of this video by rambling about that as well. So I'll simply say this, like, you have to understand, is there some kind of like deeply rooted brain damage in a lot of young boys that makes them like at 14, 15, 16 really get into these like red pill communities? Yes. Just just knock on the head, whatever. But is there something like genuine behind it? Not in the way it's being expressed, but rather in the conditions which lead them to seek out this information. I would say like, yeah, what's that quote? Many men lead lives of quiet desperation. Um, it can feel like that, I think, to a lot of people. And there really aren't that many alternative narratives going on out there right now. It doesn't help that a lot of people on the left, even though they'll watch the ContraPoints videos and clap and yes queen through them, you know, they still don't demonstrate that much sympathy, I think, to guys who are kind of like struggling with some of these issues, but aren't fully willing to like huck themselves out to what seems to be a lot of lefties' idea of an ideal man, which is like some sort of ultra pacified. God, oh man, I don't want to get into it too much, but I've seen the way a lot of guys behave in lefty communities, and the way people expect guys to behave in these lefty communities. Okay, and like there's this condescending twee like bullshit. It's like this it's kind of like a feedback loop because part of it is the guys themselves doing it and thus the community expecting it, and part of it is community like implicitly pushing it, and therefore like the guys are kowtowing to it, feeling that it's it's expected of them, which it is in some of these communities, where it's not enough to simply not be bigoted. Wouldn't that be nice? I love it when people aren't bigoted, um, but they also have to be like performatively non-threatening. You know what I mean? Like it's not enough to not just not be bigoted, not be edgy or whatever, which I think being edgy is good. If it's funny, if you're funny about it, then it's good. um but whatever, but they need to like demonstrate and act out the extent to which they're not like those other guys. You kind of fall into that like male feminist trope that a lot of people make fun of, I say as a male feminist, um where you have guys who are like either directly or sort of implicitly going, oh, guys, oh, the way guys are can be so bad sometimes. I would never do that myself, of course. I would never succumb to the depths, the bestial depths of acting like these horribly toxically masculine men, blah, 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 blah. You know, I think people on the left and people broadly, this isn't just like a leftist issue, I think, but people like broadly have to understand and accept that there are degrees of toxicity in all people that are not only inevitable and expected, but also a little bit desirable. Because when if you try to sand off every element of your personality in an effort to make sure no toxicity displays, you're going to inevitably cut off other non-toxic parts. It's a destructive process of reduction. Everybody is maybe a little bit selfish, or like can be a little bit like overly aggressive sometimes, or maybe a bit condescending or stuff, and a lot of these characteristics overlap with elements of toxic masculinity. But when you make this big show of wearing everything down until there's no chance at all of those characteristics demonstrating themselves, making themselves known or visible, you're filing your personality down in a way that I don't think is like a healthy addressal of those underlying issues. I don't think you're really like dealing with them or resolving them. I think what you're doing is creating a fucking complex over them, which is why there's a trope about a lot of like male feminist types actually being like kind of creepy abusers. And I don't think all of it is like deliberately predatory behavior on their part. I think a lot of it is just that like they spend so long not resolving or addressing internal conflicts, but rather putting on a show of having already supplanted them, that they just create some kind of like internal monster. I don't think this is a healthy way. I don't think it's like social repression. If you're a guy and you're like, man, I don't know, if there's some characteristics that you exhibit, like you're a leftist or you're moving over to the left or whatever, and they're a bit like toxic masculinity ish, like maybe sometimes you feel like you talk down to chicks a little bit, or you just a little something something whatever, you got to understand, okay, to be frank, toxic femininity is also a thing, and these bitches do not stop throwing it in my face, okay. Go out and date people, go on Tinder dates or whatever. There are a ton of girls who casually, often unknowingly demonstrate mannerisms that are negative and toxic that are associated with femininity. And I guess I'm okay with that a little bit, like, I think I don't like the toxicity itself necessarily, but I understand that part of being a human is recognizing that there's a texture to our behavior, and we're not ideal, exemplars of a political ideology. We are going to, be a little bit gruff. I've never on my stream pretended to be like a perfectly progressive person in action. I try to refine my beliefs as much as possible, but like, you know, um, I mean, if you're watching this video, you probably know at least, enough about me to know that it's widely considered that I have some problematic mannerisms myself. This isn't to say that it's good to be bad to people or whatever, only that we have to accept that there's a rough texture to human behavior all the time. And, you know, I feel like we have to accept that. And any effort to erode all of that in this unnatural performative way, just because it's these characteristics that we're eroding are associated with toxic masculinity. I just feel like there are going to be negative externalities to that. I feel like there are. I feel like it makes a lot of the guys on the left kind of weird and like kind of emasculated, or I don't know, like they act like neutered or whatever. I don't know, like they're trying like so hard to be the good boys. Um, which speaking as somebody who's not a woman, but at the very least has slept with enough guys to get a read on some of the characteristics that women tend to find attractive, they tend not to like that much. Nobody likes that that much. That like weird neurotic erosion of a person's character traits. I don't think that's attractive in general, to anyone really. So that might contribute to the issue, I guess. And I think seeing that from left-leaning guys, or at least perceiving that, like they think they're seeing it, is going to lead a lot of young guys away from more sociological and materialist analyses of this crisis of masculinity they might be going through, and they're going to take easy answers from grifters like Tate. um I mean, look at this fucking video that I'm doing. It's like nearly 30 minutes long. I'm like, what am I talking about here? Like, here's the materialist analysis of why some guys who are 14 are sad that they're not getting laid. Well, of course, why are 14-year-old boys sad they're not getting laid? Of course, all 14-year-old boys are sad they're not getting laid, unless they're asexual or whatever. Like, obviously, what the fuck was I doing at 14? Of course, I was thinking, damn, sure would be good if I was getting laid right now. Obviously, I think the analysis is important, but like at the end of the day, like what are you going to do about it? Like create the lefty space in your mind, create a leftist environment in your mind and rotate it in 3 dimensions. Okay. The government can't keep you from doing this. Imagine that space, craft it to be perfect, make a perfect space. How do you get guys in and out of that space to not fall for red pill bullshit? How do you keep them from descending into this weird pseudo cult, like online pyramid scheme bullshit that's being peddled by people who are literally like, I can teach you to make $1 million of the Las Vegas slots, and then they get rich selling you the book on how to do it rather than do it themselves. Like, how do you, when you reach Andrew Tate's level, you can project any degree of social success because you're fucking wealthy. If Bill Gates wanted to, I guess he looks really dorky, so it'd be tough to pull it off. But man, if he wanted to take roids for a bit, slick back his hair, and then use his billions on like getting like supermodels to hang out with him on yachts while he like fires guns off the edge and like guns down whales or something. If you have money, you can sell any image of masculinity. That's why I think the Tate thing is so particularly pernicious, because he has the money to back up the construction of this persona. Whereas for years now, these red pill gurus online have been like anonymous internet dudes, or they've been like weird mid-30s guys with goatees who constructed websites that look like they were like made in the early aughts, like MySpace era, trying to sell you $40 DVDs on how to pick up chicks, which include sample reels of him doing so with a model that he paid like $30 to film the scene with. Like before, everything was so cut down, everything was so like bargain basement. But the grift continues, and the grift exacerbates, and Tate may be deplatformed from everything, but he'll come back, or somebody else like him will, and you'll have a bunch of people So who feel so passively emasculated, who feel so lied to about what it means to be a guy and how you can like live life authentically as a guy, that they'll watch somebody go up there on a live stream and basically just be like, yeah, you should be able to rape women, and they'll be like, yeah, we should be able to, we used to be men. A lot of the people who believed that will grow out of it, and God knows we are going to have an insufferable wave of, I'm a leftist now, and I used to be a fan of Andrew Tate type guys. And hey, just because it's insufferable as a broader trend does not mean that there's anything wrong with them doing that. I only say it's insufferable because it's like, okay, well, we know, like right now it's like, okay, we know what's going to happen. But when it actually does happen, if you're one of those lefties who's like, oh, well, we don't want any former people with bad ideas to now have good ideas, just have bad ideas forever, go fuck yourself, right? There are people on the left who are like that. You people are insane. You're actually insane to me. You're lucky that you live now and have Twitter to express your dipshit thoughts, rather than you being some, I don't know, peasant getting rounded up by the Red Army back in the 1910s or something, because Lenin would have had you fuckers shot. Yes, he would have. Oh, you want to no, actually, I don't think we should introduce any reactionary peasantry into the proletarian vanguard. You want to recruit Red Army soldiers from this village? Huh. I heard that most of the people here don't even think that men and women are equal. Yeah, he would have been left in a ditch. It's fucking Jesus Christ. Let our ranks grow. My God. Oh God, we're rambling. 2:25 a.m. Okay. Stay fresh.